It's the final week of President Trump's impeachment trial. After 4 months of impeachment proceedings, the Senate appears set to acquit the president. Final arguments will be heard.
You must vote to acquit the president.
But are unlikely to change the outcome.
Your duty demands that you convict President Trump.
Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine.
Acquittal is a cover-up! Acquittal is a cover-up! Acquittal is a cover-up!
On my way to Iowa.
Meanwhile, Trump's 2020 rivals turn their focus to another way of removing him from office, the upcoming election. While impeachment concludes in the background, the president's State of the Union address takes the spotlight.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
The Senate prepares to take its final deciding vote on the impeachment and removal of President Donald J. Trump.
So what are we left with? The House has proven the president's guilt. He covered it up, and he covers it up still. His continuing obstruction is a threat to the oversight and investigatory powers of the House and Senate, and if left unaddressed, will permanently and dangerously alter the balance of power.
We are seeing closing arguments happening right now on the Senate floor. Val Demings is on the floor right now, and she is basically arguing that, if Republicans don't take this seriously, then Trump is effectively going to be above the law.
President Trump's constitutional crimes, his crimes against the American people and the nation, remain in progress.
His political agent, Rudolph Giuliani, recently returned to the scene of the crime in Ukraine to manufacture more dirt.
And the president's personal interest is now clear: to cheat in the next election.
You have the president's team. They were arguing still about the process, saying it was unfair to Trump.
This is an effort to overturn the results of one election and to try to interfere in the coming election that begins today in Iowa.
Did the House Judiciary Committee rush to judgment in fashioning the articles of impeachment?
This was a purely partisan impeachment from the start.
When Ambassador Sondland asked the president on approximately September 9, the president told him, "I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo."
We believe that we have established overwhelmingly that both articles of impeachment fail to allege impeachable offenses, and that, therefore, both Articles 1 and 2 must fail.
At this point, people have really made up their mind, and I don't think that these closing arguments are going to be swaying anyone anymore.
It may be midnight in Washington, but the sun will rise again. I put my faith in the optimism of the founders. You should too. They gave us the tools to do the job, a remedy as powerful as the evil it was meant to constrain: impeachment. They meant it to be used rarely, but they put it in the Constitution for a reason. For a man who would sell out his country for a political favor. For a man who would threaten the integrity of our elections. For a man who would invite foreign interference in our affairs. For a man who would undermine our national security and that of our allies. For a man like Donald J. Trump. I yield back.
The final vote to acquit Trump hasn't even happened yet, and already it seems like people have sort of moved on from this drama up here on the Hill. We had the Iowa Democratic caucuses last night. There were problems with the reporting system, and we have no winner today. That has sort of taken over all of the headlines here in Washington. Nobody thinks that Trump is going to be removed from office. Nobody thinks that any Republicans are going to be voting for this. The only question they have is whether some of the Democrats' own colleagues are going to go with Trump.
I must be realistic. I see no path to the 67 votes required to impeach President Trump, and haven't since this trial started. However, I do believe a bipartisan majority of this body would vote to censure President Trump for his actions in this manner. Censure would allow this body to unite across party lines and as an equal branch of government to formally denounce the president's actions and hold him accountable.
Can I ask you an impeachment-related question? What do you think of the censure idea?
I think we should get through this first.
A censure vote from the Senate would formally reprimand President Trump, but would not limit or strip his power in any way.
I will be flat honest with you. I don't know what censure does other than say you're censored.
Don't you think it would infuriate him though?
Oh, I'm sure he'd.
And maybe deter him from...
I'm sure he'd be upset, but I don't know that much deters this president.
So you're not ruling it out, but they've got to have the impeachment vote.
As President Trump prepares to deliver the State of the Union address, the Senate continues to debate his removal from office. Some Republicans acknowledge they think President Trump did do something wrong, but it's unlikely that will affect their votes.
The House could have pursued censure and not immediately jumped to the remedy of last resort. I cannot vote to convict.
It was wrong for President Trump to mention former Vice President Biden on that phone call.
It was inappropriate for the president to ask a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent and to withhold United States aid to encourage this investigation.
One of the reporting targets I have for the next 24 hours is going to be asking a question of what is next. Ukraine was but one of half dozen to 10 different huge investigations Democrats undertook in the House in terms of oversight of the Trump administration. It's going to be interesting to watch what Democrats emphasize from here on out. Verdicts are going to be coming down in the next few months before the election, so we can expect more headlines on that, and who knows? Maybe they try to impeach him again.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
That night, President Trump does not explicitly mention his ongoing trial at his State of the Union address, but the impeachment and his tension with the Democratic Party is thick in the air. Chief Justice John Roberts, who presides over his trial, is in the audience, and Adam Schiff and the other House impeachment managers are sitting together during Trump's address.
Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
With less than 2 hours until the Senate's final vote, one Republican surprises his party and the president, announcing he will break ranks and vote to convict Trump for abuse of power.
As a senator juror, I swore an oath before God to exercise impartial justice. I am profoundly religious. My faith is at the heart of who I am. I take an oath before God as enormously consequential. I knew from the outset that being tasked with judging the president, the leader of my own party, would be the most difficult decision I have ever faced. The president asked a foreign government to investigate his political rival. The president's purpose was personal and political. Accordingly, the president is guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust. With my vote, I will tell my children and their children that I did my duty to the best of my ability, believing that my country expected it of me. I will only be one name among many, no more, no less, to future generations of Americans who look at the record of this trial. They will note merely that I was among the senators who determined that what the president did was wrong, grievously wrong. We are all footnotes at best in the annals of history, but in the most powerful nation on earth, the nation conceived in liberty and justice, that distinction is enough for any citizen.
We are 20 minutes out from the final vote on impeachment. The big news is that Mitt Romney is going to vote to remove Trump from office. So that means that after 6 months of trying to convince even a single Republican to say that what Trump did was impeachable, Democrats today finally succeeded on the last day of the impeachment saga. We just heard that Kirsten Sinema of Arizona, she was a moderate Democrat that we thought could go either way. She's going to be voting with her party. She's going to be voting to convict Trump. Now we're just waiting on Joe Manchin, who is again from West Virginia, very close with the president, but he's a Democrat. So will he choose his party, or will he choose, to stick with Trump on this? I feel like this has been one of the best weeks of his presidency for so many reasons. The first one, Iowa was a total disaster for the Democrats. You see the Gallup poll come out showing him at 49%, the highest it has ever been for the president. He has this State of the Union where he didn't even mention impeachment, which was shocking to me. And then finally today, he's going to get that acquittal he's been wanting since, last September when Pelosi first announced this.
The Senate will convene as a court of impeachment.
It's just a really big week for Trump, and you can just feel the Democrats, their frustration and sort of seething behind the scenes.
Mr. Chief Justice, the Senate is now ready to vote on the articles of impeachment, and after that is done, we will adjourn the court of impeachment.
The question is on the first article of impeachment. Senators, how say you? Is the respondent, Donald John Trump, guilty or not guilty? A roll call vote is required. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Not guilty.
Ms. Collins.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty. Mr. Romney.
Guilty.
Mr. Romney, guilty.
Guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty.
48 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 52 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. The Senate adjudges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the first article of impeachment.
So I'm proud of my colleagues for seeing through that, for knowing that even though if you ask a typical voter, should there be witnesses in a trial, they'd say, sure, of course there ought to be witnesses. That it was really about not the president, we all knew he was not going to be removed from office, but about trying to take the Senate. I'm glad it ended the way it did. I hope the message to the House of Representatives, don't do this again.
The question is on the second article of impeachment. Senators, how say you? Is the respondent, Donald John Trump, guilty or not guilty?
The Senate turned its back on the truth, on a fair trial, on doing what the Founding Fathers would have wanted us to do. I believe the American people will know who stood in the way of truth, who were afraid of the facts, who covered up.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Not guilty.
Mr. Barrasso.
There was no other conclusion that I could come to. Facts are overwhelming.
Mr. Manchin.
Guilty.
Mr. Manchin, guilty.
Make no mistake about it, the drip, drip, drip of evidence is going to keep coming out. With each new revelation, Republicans are going to have to answer for their votes.
Mr. Cornyn.
Not guilty.
Mr. Booker.
Guilty. Guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty.
Mr. McConnell, not guilty.
On this article of impeachment, 47 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 53 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the second article of impeachment. It is, therefore, ordered and adjudged that the said Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby, acquitted of the charges in said articles. The Senate, sitting as a court of impeachment, stands adjourned sine die.
This is really not a news conference. It's not a speech. It's not anything. It's just we're sort of, it's a celebration because we have something that just worked out. I mean, it worked out. We went through hell unfairly, did nothing wrong, but this is what the end result is. We were treated unbelievably unfairly, and you have to understand, we first went through Russia, Russia, Russia. It was all bullshit. And I'm sure that Pelosi and Crying Chuck, I've known this guy all the time. The only time I ever saw him cry was when it was appropriate. But I'm sure they'll try and cook up other things. I want to apologize to my family for having them have to go through a phony, rotten deal by some very evil and sick people. And Ivanka's here, and my sons, and my whole family. And that includes Barron. That includes Barron, who's up there as a young boy. And Mitch McConnell, I want to tell you, you did a fantastic job. Nancy Pelosi and all of these guys. I mean, Nadler, I know him much of my life. He's fought me in New York for 25 years. I always beat him. If they find that I happen to walk across the street and maybe go against the light or something, let's impeach him. So we'll probably have to do it again because these people have gone stone cold crazy. But I've beaten them all my life, and I'll beat them again if I have to. Our country is thriving. Our country is just respected again. And it's an honor to be with the people in this room. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.